So I know nothing about Gundam, so you might be wondering then why I'm building this. It's been a couple of hours since I built it now, and I will say that my fingers still hurt. I'll also say it was a lot easier to build than some of the Warhammer stuff I've done before. I always prefer the snap together kits. This was better than the snap together Warhammer kits that I've built before as well. I don't know, I always find Warhammers I kind of like them, but they're a little bit annoying, the way that the solvent adhesive works. I also like that you don't have to paint this. It just comes in the colours it's supposed to be. I think some of the other versions of it you have to put stickers on, and I wouldn't like to do that, but this one didn't. So it said in the instructions you don't need any tools, but there was a couple of times when you were snapping it off the sprues where the sprue either came off still with the piece or left like a little bit on the piece still. So having the little side cutters did really help with that. I'm happy with how it turned out, but like I say, I've never watched Gundam. I don't dislike it, but I can't say I like it. I have no feelings towards it really. So for why I bought it, I bought this one because we went to the shop the other day and they were doing a 3 for 2 deal on model kits and off-brand Lego. So not the real Lego, but basically Lego. And there was a couple of kits my wife wanted. She likes building the plants, and there was an aquarium set that we decided to get. We could get a third thing as well, so I chose to get this one. So in 2014, I got married to my wife, and we went on our honeymoon, and we went to New York, and it was over Christmas, and we had a load of stuff planned. We were supposed to be going to Washington for a couple of days, and we were supposed to go up the Empire State Building, and we were talking about going to Niagara Falls, because we were there for 2 weeks. I think it was the 18th of December we left, and we came back just after New Year. But on Boxing Day, which, for anyone who isn't in the Commonwealth, is the day after Christmas, I ended up in hospital. We went out on Christmas Day. We went to a really nice steakhouse. I had just a massive steak, and a massive piece of cake, and a lobster, and loads of vegetables, and just loads of shit. And it was really nice. And then we left, and then in the night I started getting really bad stomach cramps. Ended up sprawled on the bathroom floor in just tons of pain. And then we went downstairs and we talked to them about where the nearest emergency room was. And they said there was one nearby and they'd call a taxi for us. And I'm like, well, I'm not fucking paying for a taxi, so I just walked. Because I was in pain, but I'm not paying money. So we walked to this emergency room, and it was it's like an outpatient clinic. I'm not familiar with it because it's the only time I've been in. It's actually the only time I've stayed in any hospital overnight, and it was in America as well. So I went to this outpatient clinic thing, and they gave me a scan, and actually we were supposed to be actually going to a WWE show at Madison Square Garden that night. So I was desperately hoping we'd still be okay for that, but nope, I had some form of infection. We have no idea what it was, but they thought it might have been appendicitis, which did lead to a massive argument, because in the UK, if you get appendicitis, if it's not that bad, you just get antibiotics and you take them, and that's it. But the doctors, because they're American, kept arguing with me that I couldn't possibly have had it before because they would have removed my appendix, and would not listen to me that that's just not how we deal with it in the UK. But no, I have had appendicitis before, and we do just take antibiotics. But anyway, so they kept trying to talk to me about removing my appendix. And I'm like, well, for one thing, I don't really want a surgery while I'm here. And for another, I didn't really think it was that bad. I kept having to argue with them as well, because he kept trying to give me painkillers constantly, and I'm like, no, I'm okay. It's a bit uncomfortable. I'm not that bad. I want to get the infection gone. But honestly, if you just give me some antibiotics, I'll just go home. But they wouldn't let me. I actually got transferred from this outpatient place to an actual hospital, and it's also the only time I've ever been in an ambulance. So I was in there for a couple of days. It wasn't particularly pleasant, but it was fine. I saw everyone in the place. The reason they couldn't do surgery is because apparently so much of me was swollen, inflamed, that if they'd have cut me open it would have caused more problems. So they just didn't. So I just had the antibiotics and it was fine. They sent me home with some after a few days, and I actually left the hospital early because for the first 2.5 days I was there, it was just me in the room, and then towards the end of the third day, a guy came in the room with me, and he had real problems, and basically just kept shitting himself. I know this isn't the story that you're expecting to hear when you're watching me build a Gunpla, but there is a reason for it. Yeah, he just kept shitting himself, and I could not deal with being in the room with him. I was like, I don't feel great, but I would feel worse if I stay here. So I ended up just getting dressed and walking to the nurse's station and just being like, can I just leave? I just want to go. And they were already planning on discharging me, But I'm just like, yeah, I'm not staying in that room. I'm just going to stay out here and just wait for you. So I just waited, and then they filled out my forms and I just left. The entire time I was there, I wasn't allowed to eat anything. And they were like, you have to be really careful now once you leave, because like it's not going to be safe for you to eat a lot. So the first thing we did was immediately go to a burger place. It was Umami Burger. I got a pumpkin spice double cheeseburger, and it was okay. I've had better burgers from them before, but I just really wanted to try it, and I just needed a fucking burger. Anyone who knows me knows that I eat a lot of burgers. Like, burgers are probably my favourite food. And this entire experience only cost me about 300 quid, which I had insurance, so that was covered for. Americans pay more in taxes for their healthcare than we do in the UK, and yet still don't get actual universal healthcare, which is kind of ridiculous, because their stuff subsidises all foreign national healthcare, so that we get it way cheaper if we're over there, but it also pays for a lot of stuff. But your actual problem is that over here, our government basically tells the companies that supply medical equipment and pharmaceuticals and all that stuff, the government says, we will pay this much for this thing, and that's it. So they either agree with it, or they get nothing, but also, granted, we get no service from it. But it ends up meaning that we just pay less. Like, even if we didn't pay for it in taxes, we would still pay less for it if that system continued. Anyway, I was surprised how cheap it was, and every American I've ever spoken to has told me that that's ridiculous because it would have cost them way more, because I got like an ambulance transfer, I had multiple scans, I saw multiple different people, like surgical teams and psychiatrists, because they wanted to check I was okay because I was in hospital, and then like multiple days in a basically private room. Like, it would have cost anyone else a lot more money. But anyway, so because of that, we missed a lot of things that we were supposed to do over the trip, because even though I was only there for 3 days, when I came out of it, I obviously couldn't do as much. Now, luckily for us, we were actually quite near the end of the trip at this point. It was, I think we were like 9 days into the trip when I went into the hospital. So we were on the holiday for 14 days. So we'd done the vast majority of the stuff we'd had planned already. But we did miss the trip to Washington. We missed going to Niagara Falls. We missed the Madison Square Garden's WWE show. And we missed going up the Empire State Building. So I felt really bad because of that, because I like felt that we like ruined my honeymoon, basically. I know it's like not real, like obviously I didn't, it was completely outside of my control, but it still didn't stop me feeling bad about it. So in the summer, we decided to go to Japan. So that led to us being in Japan for like 2 weeks, and it was really good. We spent most of the time in Tokyo. We travelled outside and we went to Kyoto and Nara, and we went to Hakone, and we went to Osaka. Now, we only spent like a day in each of those places, and we spent the vast majority of the time in Tokyo, but it was really good, and I really want to go back. I remember the day that we got there, I like cried, because I was worried that I'd made like a massive mistake. And I think, looking back on it now, it's more just that when you fly late at night, and you arrive early in the morning, so you basically end up being awake for like 24, 30 hours. You end up just awake for like over a full day straight, just travelling. Because I can't sleep on a plane, really, and it's like a 14-hour flight. And then you get there at 7 in the morning, can't check into the hotel till like 3, so we just wandered the streets of Tokyo. We got to the hotel, I mean, they let us drop the stuff off at the hotel. But yeah, then we just wandered the streets of Tokyo for a while, and I was just like completely tired. And then there's just this bit where I'm walking down a street in Tokyo. As stupid as it sounds, everything's in Japanese, so I can't read it. Now, I know if it's Japanese words in the English alphabet, I can kind of piece stuff together. I know little bits about stuff. I know enough to get me places, stuff like that. But when it's actually in like kanji or whatever, I'm like, again, I can recognize some of it, but it was too much for me to deal with at this point. And I was just like terrified that the trip was going to go terribly, and that I was like letting my wife down, and it just like freaked me out, and I just could not cope with it at that point because I was so tired as well. And again, this was like 7:30 in the morning, so nowhere's even open. A couple of hours later, we ended up getting into a Starbucks, and we just sat down and had a drink. And then we went over and looked through a big camera, and then we went down into the subway station, and we went over to Tokyo's main station, and we got some food from the Tokyo Underground City, and then went back to the hotel just in time to check in, and then I just passed out for like 16 hours. And after that, everything was great. It was like a great trip. It's one of my favourite things I've done. I really want to go back. We were actually supposed to go back. If we can work out to be able to afford it, we will go back. But I don't know. There's a lot of things going on now. I'm hoping that we'll be able to go back once my wife finishes her PhD, which will be this year. I mentioned it before that she was doing it, and we went to London so she could have a meeting about it. And I mentioned this already. She's passed, but with corrections, which is how everyone passes. So she's got a few months to do those corrections, and then she'll have a PhD at the end of the year. Well, by the end of the year. Well, I guess that depends when the university decides to do the graduation, but you know what I mean. So maybe to celebrate that if we can afford it. I will say that going to Nara was cool and seeing all the deer, but we went in the middle of summer, so we spent a couple of hours on a train, got all the way to Nara, and then it was so hot that I couldn't stay. I couldn't deal with it. I could not deal with how hot it was that day. So we actually got into Nara, we walked halfway to one of the temples, and got so hot that we ended up just turning around and going back. So we saw all the deer and everything, and the deer are cool, and you have to be really careful with the deer. They're really polite and they will bow to you, but if you have food and they see it, they will attack you. We did see them attack people. There's signs around saying don't let them see the food. There's signs around saying don't put the food in like your bag or whatever, and we saw people where they put food in the bags and they do just attack you and start dragging your bag around. And also while we were there, we got interviewed by some school children who were learning English, so they had to they were doing a thing where they just wandered around and they found us and asked us some questions. I also got interviewed for a Japanese TV show while I was in Akihabara. I doubt they used the clip because it wasn't very interesting. It was at this time when there was a period where people would ask me what I did. And at the time I was a student, so I would just be like, oh, I'm not really doing much at the moment. And my wife would always say, oh, you're a game dev? And I'd be like, yeah, kind of. Because again, at the time I was still in uni for it. So it wasn't like a thing I was actually doing, I was just learning how to. It just felt like I was claiming something I didn't have. And they kept trying to get me to swear in Japanese, and I was like, oh, I don't know any. This was actually before I got into the Yakuza series. So I could probably do more now. But no, we went all over the place, and we went to the Ghibli Museum, and that was cool. It was really good, and if you get a chance to go, you should go. I want to see more in Osaka, because we mostly only went there because we went to the Kaiyukan, which was just a massive aquarium, and they had whale sharks, and that was really cool, because I fucking love whale sharks. While we were there, one of the things we did was we went to Diver City, and if you're aware, outside Diver City is a giant Gundam statue, and it is the RX-78-2. So that is the entire reason why I've bought this model. There you go. We're 15 minutes in and I've finally told you why I've bought it. It's really just a reminder of the trip that we took. I basically got it for free. I also wanted it more because I found out that one doesn't exist anymore. Apparently they replaced it with one from, was it Gundam Unicorn? When that came out, they replaced it. So the one that I saw doesn't exist anymore. And I was kind of sad about that. Again, no real attachment to Gundam, but it's more just this reminder of a trip that we took. And now it's also a reminder of a thing that doesn't exist anymore, which is kind of a shame. It feels weird doing that. Just have both of them. That would be cool. But no. So, it's just a reminder of the big trip that we took. And I just like building the models anyway, so I wanted to. I've always been interested in Gunpla, but I don't like Gundam, so there was never any reason for me to buy any of it. Now, granted, there are other models from other things that they make, so I could have bought one of those. But then, this was cheap or basically free. It was cheap anyway, and then with it being in a 3-for-2 thing, ended up being free. And it's a reminder of the trip that we took. So I decided to get it, and I quite enjoyed building it. I don't know if I'd ever build another one. Again, mostly just because there is no emotional attachment to me for the things. And like I mentioned at the start, my fingers still hurt, and it's been about 6 hours since I built it. But yeah, it was cool, it was fun. But yeah, so the reason I bought a Gundam is because it reminds me of going to Japan. But yeah, I think that's about it really. I could talk a bit more, but I don't need to give you all the details of my trips. I've probably sped this up a bit because the raw footage is 50 minutes long and I've only spoken for 20 at this point, and that's without editing it. So I hope you like the video. I'm going to leave you with some nice little shots of the completed build. But yeah, thanks for watching. Special thanks to my patrons, Justin Wood, Hobbs and Koopy Vegeta. You can join my patrons at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, check out my TikTok and Twitter at Holden Gatsby, and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Holden Gatsby. Don't forget to subscribe to all of my channels. If you want more, you can watch my last video now, but if not, then thanks for sticking around. Bye.